2023 is one of the best years for game releases with many amazing open world games. Here are 20 that are worth your time, starting with one of the biggest releases of the year, at least commercially, Hogwarts Legacy. If you're a fan of the wizarding world, I don't think I need to sell you on this one, because exploring a highly detailed and interactive version of Hogwarts 100 years before the events of the books and movies should already be enough to pull you in. But even if you don't care about the setting that much, Hogwarts Legacy is still a fun open world RPG with puzzles to complete, dungeons to explore, and loot and upgrades to find. You start by creating your own character, get sorted into a house, go to classes, meet and befriend other students, and eventually you'll of course learn to fly your own broom in this large open space, which is awesome, one of the best modes of traversal in any open world game. Plus, while the combat system isn't that complicated, slinging spells instead of swinging swords gives it a very unique feel, and it allows for some cool combos and counters too. And the wizarding world is not the only big IP that got an amazing game release this year, as Star Wars Jedi Survivor also came out. And it really raised the bar set by Fallen Order with more saber stances, more meaningful exploration, progression, and especially customization. But the biggest switch up is the central planet Kobo, which functions as an open world area with tons of secrets to find, where you can even use a mount to get around the place. I still think the story is one of the highlights for the game as well, so if you're looking for a roller coaster of an adventure in the Star Wars universe, look no further. If you want something a little bit more surprising, then you might want to check out Dredge. This indie title is currently sitting at an 80 Metacritic score and 95% positive reviews on Steam. You explore the remote archipelago known as the Marrows in your fishing boat, catching fish, scouring wreckages, and selling what you find back to the locals so you can upgrade your boat and fishing equipment. Sounds boring? Well, that is until nighttime hits and the Eldritch Sea Monster starts showing up, which means you need to make it back to port as soon as possible to keep your catch safe. You'll also be meeting various townfolk, some who offer you quests to eventually unravel the mysteries that lie hidden in the Marrows. But for the ultimate open-ended adventure, I think there's no better title this year than Tears of the Kingdom. After finishing the tutorial, the entire map of Hyrule, the Sky Islands above, and the dangerous depths below it are open for you to explore. And they are filled with treasure, side quests, bosses, and puzzles that all reward you with meaningful upgrades. This open-ended design shines through even in the gameplay, as Link's new Ultra Hand powers allow you to build weapons or even vehicles on demand. This really lets you solve puzzles and combat encounters in your own creative ways. I really enjoyed my time with this one, and if you're looking for one game that you can sink a ton of hours into, this is one of the best this year. And one of the best games of last year also got a major DLC in 2023 that not enough people are talking about. Because with the Burning Shores, Guerrilla was finally able to ditch the PS4 to make a full-on PlayStation 5 experience, and the result is mind-blowing thanks to new weather tech, even more impressive cutscenes, and one of the most visually impressive boss fights ever. We usually don't see these type of set pieces in an expansion, but they did not hold back. The Burning Shores DLC takes place after the ending of Horizon Forbidden West, which means that the map is also made with the flying mount in mind, and they even added one that can dive underwater. There are other new machines that are a real challenge to fight, and fun side quests with new and familiar characters. A really nice package for $20 that everyone who loves Horizon should play, and it only elevates Horizon Forbidden West in the list of best PlayStation 5 games available. And there are way more big 2023 releases I want to discuss, so if you enjoyed the video so far, be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more content like this. One of my most anticipated releases of the year was Baldur's Gate 3, and damn did the game deliver. Larian's turn-based RPG took the world by storm thanks to its commitment to player freedom and role-playing. Like, there are so many different ways in which scenarios can play out that I doubt anyone will have a similar playthrough. This goes for conversations, where the dice roll based skill checks add an element of unpredictability as well, which presents the unique opportunity to talk yourself out of a fight, as sometimes you can skip a difficult boss fight by convincing the boss to avoid conflict or even kill himself if you roll high enough. But this flexibility is also present in the amazing turn-based combat, which offers you a wide variety of classes, spells, and gear, while also challenging you with fun and unique encounters. It's a big game too, with each of its 3 acts encompassing multiple regions and quest lines, some of which are even tied to the backstory of your traveling companions. Which honestly are the best part of this game. They are so well written and interesting that I felt as invested in their stories as I did in the game's main narrative. But if turn-based combat is not your thing, there's also a great ARPG that released this year, and that is of course Diablo 4. If you like build crafting and grinding for the perfect loot to optimize those builds, then you'll find plenty to to enjoy here. The 5 available classes offer a lot of variety in skills and gameplay, and the massive open world is filled with dungeons, random events, and even world bosses to make sure that no matter where you are going, there's always something to do. And Diablo 4 is a game that you can keep playing for a long time, as the seasonal model will keep adding free content post-launch. The first season was not well received, but the current Season of Blood already shows a lot of improvements with unique seasonal quests, progression systems, and loot drops. And the Vessel of Hatred DLC, set to release late 2024, is going to add a new class as well, so like I said, this one will keep you busy for a while. And 2023 was a great year for high-budget fantasy action, as we also got the amazing Final Fantasy XVI. This fantasy epic delivers some of the most jaw-dropping moments I have ever seen in a video game, which is elevated even more by the incredible voice acting and soundtrack. What starts out as protagonist Clive's search for his brother's killer quickly turns into something much bigger, and the story will take you through many different countries and places. Some of which will offer you the opportunity to explore and do side quests that reveal more about the surprisingly grim world of Valisthea. But the best part of the game for me was the combat system, because next to Clive's skills with a sword, you can draw on the powers of the different godlike icons to perform powerful special moves. By the end of the game, Clive is as much of a badass as the bosses he is going up against, and that's saying a lot because the boss fights are some of the most impressive things we have seen in gaming to date. After many requests, Ubisoft returned to the old AC formula with Assassin's Creed Mirage, a game that has less of a focus on RPG mechanics and is more about sneaking and sticking to the shadows. And the result is surprisingly good. While you can still see that the game started as a DLC for Valhalla, the amazing recreation of Baghdad with a focus on parkour and stealth makes it feel like a completely different experience. Basim is a capable fighter, but still it's smarter to stay hidden and use the different tools to take the enemies out without being spotted. Where the previous RPG games could easily take you up to 100 hours to complete, Mirage's more linear story can be completed in 15 hours with some pretty fun moments along the way. If you've been missing the days of AC 1 and 2, then Mirage might pull you back in, although the slightly lower price should tell you that it's not a complete return to form just yet. But if you are looking for an RPG to sink your teeth into, then you should put Octopath Traveler 2 on your list. Like the first game, your main narrative is woven together from the personal stories of your 8 party members, so you can play through chapters of their individual stories in any order you want. You pick one character to start, and then it's up to you if you want to recruit the rest or immediately continue with their personal storyline. The turn-based combat is focused on exploiting an enemy's weakness to specific attacks, and with each party member bringing their own unique set of skills to the table, there is a lot of strategy involved here. But each character also has a set of skills that are active during exploration, such as the ability to recruit village NPCs, including elderly townsfolk, to your party. These exploration skills also change depending on the time of day. So while it might seem like a traditional old school RPG on the surface, there are a lot of interesting mechanics that keep the formula fresh. The soundtrack absolutely slaps too, which is a big plus in my book. And 2023 was a big year for the PlayStation 5. I already mentioned Final Fantasy XVI, but more recently we were treated to Spider-Man 2. The sequel to 2018 Spider-Man delivers a great superhero story with both Miles and Peter playable this time, as you can freely switch between them in the open world. And the spectacle, set pieces and animation quality are on full display here, with easily some of the best sections of gameplay in the franchise. The map of New York has also doubled in size and has been repopulated with new activities and side quests that have been greatly expanded with special encounters and unique gameplay, making them 100% worth your time. They also reward you tokens which allow you to unlock upgrades and, more importantly, new suits for both Spider-Man. There are over 65 suits to earn that, unlike the previous game, don't have any impact on the gameplay. Luckily, we have the new abilities and parry mechanic to spice up the combat, which especially shine through in the new boss battles. But to me, the most fun part of these games has always been the traversal, and the addition of web wings and new tricks make it even more enjoyable than the previous entries. Spider-Man 2 is over before you know it, and it will definitely leave you wanting more. Luckily, Xbox fans were not left behind either, as this was the year we finally saw the release of the long-awaited new Bethesda IP Starfield. This sci-fi RPG gives you a ton of different things to do, from building spaceships to investigating unknown planets to being a full-on space pirate. As with most Bethesda games, the faction quest lines in Starfield are an absolute highlight of the game, and they offer some amazing rewards in return. But the main story this time around around is pretty interesting too, and it leads to a very interesting spin on New Game Plus that makes every new playthrough exciting. And while combat mostly boils down to some third or first person shooting, the gunplay feels very nice and there are a ton of different weapons to try, so it's still a lot of fun. But whether you want to go guns blazing against aliens or space pirates, or if you just want to build a peaceful outpost in a distant star system, Starfield has a ton of content to keep you playing for a very long time. Another release that finally saw the light of day in 2023 is Dead Island 2. Considering how many times the game switched developers, it's a miracle it came out at all, and it did so in a pretty good state too. The gory melee combat feels very satisfying, and you can change up your playstyle even further thanks to the pretty unique skill card system. There are some solid weapon modding systems in place as well, cool unique weapons to find, different enemy types to keep you on your toes, and of course you get to explore zombified landmarks in LA, which is pretty cool. Like, you'll be visiting abandoned movie studios, Venice Beach, Beverly Hills, all while beating the life out of the undead trying to eat you. Definitely one of the more safe open world titles this year, but especially with some friends in co-op, it is still a lot of fun. And while it's technically not a new game, I still wanted to put the Cyberpunk DLC Phantom Liberty on the list. And that's not just because it's an amazing addition to the game, with especially Idris Elba's Solomon Reed stealing the show. No, it's also because just before the release of the expansion, CDPR put out a huge free update that overhauled many core gameplay systems, including the entire skill tree, the cop system, and more. Like, the game is now in a state that's actually comparable to those insane E3 demos that they showed. Night City feels much more alive and has cemented itself as one of my favorite open world maps in any game. So if you haven't touched Cyberpunk in a while, you have plenty of reason to come back and start a new playthrough to experience the game with all the amazing changes that have been made since launch. And then on top of that, you now have a great DLC that adds more content, more powers for V, and even a new ending for the main game. But Night City is of course a pretty violent place, so if you'd rather explore a more peaceful open world, you should take a look at Season: A Letter to the Future. In this game, you play as the young woman Estelle, who sets out from her isolated village for the first time to explore Tiang Valley. Her reason for doing so is that the current season is ending, meaning a cataclysm will wash everything away soon and start a new season. So Estelle sets out on her bike to explore the beautifully stylized valley, to record memories by taking pictures, recording sounds, and placing them in her scrapbook. You'll also meet different people, each with their own tale of loss that you unravel as the game progresses. It might not be a long game, around 8 to 10 hours, but Season: A Letter to the Future is definitely a unique experience that you won't find anywhere else. Now, the next couple of games might not be entirely open world, but they still have open spaces to explore with many things to find. More importantly, they're also too good not to include them in a roundup. One of my surprise favorites of the year is Alan Wake 2. Remedy's survival horror game does so many unique things that it's hard not to be impressed. The dual protagonist mechanic works very well, with Detective Saga Anderson being able to piece clues together in her mind place. Meanwhile, Alan, who is trapped in a twisted version of New York, can use his writing to shift reality. Progression is linear, but you can complete both stories in any order, and there are more open-ended areas for both Saga and Alan to explore to find extra clues or upgrades. And while the flashlight and firearm-based combat of the game is fun, I think it's hard to pin down what makes Alan Wake 2 so special without spoiling anything. It's really something I recommend you experience for yourself, especially one level that immediately shot to the top of my list of best moments in games. Another unexpected hit this year was Lies of P. I'm always a bit fearful when studios try to replicate FromSoft's formula, but this twisted take on the story of Pinocchio hit the nail on the head. Challenging enemies, great atmosphere, and terrifying bosses are already enough to make me happy, especially when the visuals also scratch that Bloodborne itch that I imagine many of us have. But there are also unique mechanics Lies of P brings to the table, like your Legion arm that allows you to slot different special attacks, like a grappling hook to pull enemies close. Weapons also offer a lot of flexibility, as they consist of blades and handles that can be swapped to create unique combinations. And even in the narrative department, Lies of P tries something new by giving you the option to tell the truth or lie, which will influence your choice of ending. So if you're looking for a well-crafted Souls-like that tries some fun new things too, this might be the one for you. It's on Game Pass as well, so if you have a subscription, definitely give it a try. And staying on the note of challenging action games, we also saw the release of Remnant 2 this year. This part roguelike, part Souls-like with guns offers a ton of replayability thanks to its randomly generated open maps that can offer new quest lines, bosses, and rewards on subsequent playthroughs. There are 11 different classes to level up, with some of them requiring an entire treasure hunt hunt to unlock them. And the same is true for all the different weapons, mods and armors that make up your build. The combat is very satisfying and engaging, as you have to dodge enemy strikes and projectiles while shooting them down, with the guns and melee weapons also feeling very satisfying to use. And with how many secrets there are to find, you can easily lose many hours scouring every inch of the map for your next piece of loot. The recent Awakened King DLC added a new class and even more loot and weapons to the game, so with 2 more to come in the future, there is more than enough content to keep you playing. But I think my favorite third-person shooter of the year is Resident Evil 4 Remake. Having never played the original, this was an amazing way to experience a beloved classic, but even if you have played it, enough changes have been made to make it still feel like a new game. And the pacing in RE4R is incredible, as every fight left me with just enough resources and ammo to make it to the next. Leon feels great to control too, easily switching between multiple weapons, and especially his ability to parry incoming attacks with his knife is an awesome addition. And while story progression is linear, exploration can definitely give you an easier time, as you'll need a lot of pesetas to buy weapon upgrades from the merchant. So retracing your steps to look for treasure, unlock new rooms or passages, or complete a merchant request will reward you with extra resources to keep you alive. But yeah, the original is of course considered a classic for a reason, so the amazing level design, cool locations and scary bosses are still on full display, with some great new additions too. I finally get the love for this game. It is an absolute must play in my book. And the next one might not be a full-on must play, but if you can find a cheap copy of Forspoken, then I was told by a very reliable source, namely the man himself, Jordan, that it's completely worth your time. Big new open world IPs don't come by as often as we'd like, and while the game is far from perfect, this new world ruled by powerful godlike figures called Tantas can still be a really good time. We play as Frey Holland, who suddenly finds herself in this medieval fantasy land, Alice in Wonderland style. And surprise, turns out that she is the only one that can save it. Luckily, there are some nice twists and interesting characters that you will meet along the way to make the story stand out. Another highlight are the magical powers. There are over 100 spells that can all be combined to take out the many enemies, including huge bosses, like you are constantly unlocking new spells. Not to mention the fun traversal that expands over time and allows you to very quickly move across the land. It totally didn't reach its full potential, but Forspoken is a fun game nonetheless. Let us know what games you enjoyed most in 2023 in the comments, leave a like if you enjoyed the video and subscribe so you won't miss the next one. You can also watch Jordan's hands-on impression with Avatar Frontiers of Pandora by clicking on the screen. I will see you in the next one, goodbye.